It's just a science project.
Silent breed is people!
You know, a doctor friend once said the same thing to me. Frankenstein was his name.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
That sounds like something out of science fiction.
Please explain to me the scientific nature of the whammy.
We live in a spaceship, dear. So?
Yes, science!
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Now, please welcome our most special guests, the new Ig Nobel Prize winners. This year's winners actually represent 6 continents. Sorry, Antarctica.
Hello and welcome to episode 201 of Science on Top. Today is Sunday, the 27th of September, 2015. I'm Ed Brown, and joining me today is Dr. Shane Joseph.
G'day.
Penny Dumsday.
Hello.
Lucas Randall.
Hello.
And a linguist from the University of Western Australia and host of RTRFM's Talk the Talk. Welcome back, Daniel Midgley.
Thank you very much.
So today's show is all about the Ig Nobel Awards, one of our favourite award shows each year. Last week was the 25th annual Ig Nobel Awards, held as always at Harvard University. The Ig Nobels celebrate science that first makes you laugh and then makes you think. Sometimes it makes you laugh a lot more than it makes you think, though. Let's begin with the Chemistry Prize, which was awarded to a team from Australia and the USA for inventing a chemical recipe to partially unboil an egg. Funny, but there is a very serious side to this. This is to do with protein folding and treatments for very serious diseases like Alzheimer's, for example.
Yeah, when I read it, I thought, apart from the clickbait headline of unboiling an egg, I thought this is actually, I don't even understand how it's Ig Nobel. Because, I mean, I teach biology, and one of the things I always say is, once an egg is boiled and, the white goes from clear to white, you can't unboil it, and it's all about the way that proteins work.
Miss, yes, you can.
You can. Oh, I know.
Oh, you got to cop that.
As many of my students will have read. Anyway, whatever. This science is really cool because what happens is that the proteins are all these long chains of amino acids all folded up in a special way, and the heat or other factors can cause them to unfold and change their shape, and they don't work like they're meant to work. And what this team have been able to do is essentially get the proteins, or help some of the proteins that have got the wrong shape go back towards their original shape, which is absolutely amazing. Like, this is not... I keep thinking of, the one that was trying to find out which kind of beer flies prefer. Like, this is really, really, really exciting science.
That's the point of the Ig Nobels, is that it's not just silly science for the sake of it. It's science that may seem silly or funny, but there is this serious component to it, and this is fantastic.
But maybe I'm too earnest. But what's even funny? It's just...
It's unboiling an egg.
Okay.
That's funny.
Yeah.
No, but that's amazing science.
Yeah.
I think I'm too earnest about this topic.
No, I kind of agree with Penny. Like, it's compared to some of the other ones on this list, this is actually this is a maxim that everybody knows, you can't unboil an egg, and all of a sudden, wait a minute, what? And then, it has this implication afterwards, so... Yeah,
I would argue that to us, yes, it is not all that funny, but to your average layperson who's not interested in or not aware of the folding protein and the huge ramifications that something like this has, to them it's just a funny, why are scientists spending all this money unboiling an egg?
Yeah.
Which is obviously the next part of the Ig Nobels is the important part. It says why this is an important thing. There is really huge ramifications because so many of the major diseases that we face are protein-based, such as Alzheimer's, which is protein or prions, and cancers, which also may be related to protein folding. So it's very cool.
I do like the analogy they've given here. It's a bit like popping open a crumpled paper bag. That makes sense because, when proteins denature, like they are folded in a really specific shape, but when they denature and sort of clump together, they clump together randomly, and it's sort of it's obviously not in their original shape. But then this process basically unravels them very, very, very carefully, and then the physics of it, I'm not really. I confess I don't really understand it that much either. But the process they go through makes them fold again in the proper way.
Yeah,
which is really cool. Like that's actually that's damn cool.
Yeah. It is.
The name of the machine sounds cool as well. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be the final name, but the vortex fluidic device sounds like something out of Doctor Who.
Quick,
sounds like
to the vortex fluidic device.
Setting number 176 on the sonic screwdriver. The Physics Prize went to scientists from the USA and Taiwan for testing the biological principle that nearly all mammals empty their bladders in about 21 seconds, plus or minus 13 seconds, which seems a rather large error margin. Plus or minus almost 50%. But we did talk about this a few years ago on the show. Basically, they went around, I think it was a zoo, and they just waited for animals to urinate, and they timed it. And the interesting thing was that no matter the various different sizes of urethra on the animals, it all roughly came down to a similar sort of time to empty their bladders, 21 seconds, which they called the biological law of urination, I think it was.
With a rather large error margin. And, if the animal had been on the terps the previous night, then I'm throwing it out.
Well, that's the thing. There's so many variables. Do all animals wait until they've got a very full bladder before emptying? Do they just go when they're marking territory and things like that? There are a lot of, I think, variables that I don't know how well they controlled.
I suppose what's amazing about it is that the variation in bladder size and therefore how much each animal can hold is remarkably different. I mean, they've got a nice little graphic here where they show, a Great Dane, which is, one of the bigger dogs, has a bladder size of 0.4 gallons, which is how much is that in litres? I can't.
1 litre. No, 0.4. Oh, God, no.
I can't do American in my head. Anyway.
No. a gallon is about 4 litres.
Yeah, so 0.4 is 1.5 litres.
Really? So, okay. Well, anyway, so a bison has, 5.5 gallon size bladder, and an elephant has a 42 gallon size bladder, which is a lot. And yet they all pee at about the same. Well, they take the same general amount of time to pee.
Yeah, the Great Dane was 24 seconds, the bison 20 seconds, and the elephant 22 seconds.
I bet they just let it rip whenever. I bet they don't wait until it's full. I think that if other animals had to sit through movies, we'd see a lot more variation in the time. What's your record? I'm just curious. Anybody want to go public with the record?
I've never timed it. I do know that when I've been, again, on the terps, it seems like it's taking forever. I'm not really sure.
So I used to be a competitive swimmer, and before major events, you'd be rehydrating, so you'd keep your fluids up, and you'd be nervous about the race, so you'd need to go, and you'd often have to go, okay, I need to be in marshalling, I need to be ready for my event, I've got 2 minutes. So, yeah, I kind of did time it, and I was around about 30 seconds most of the time. But then I drank a lot, so who knows? Okay, that just went to too much information territory.
I was just like, wow, Ed, I just never knew these things about you.
It's Daniel's fault because he
asked. And the unspoken part of that was, I'm not really sure I wanted to know that much about you. Anyway.
My personal best, 90 seconds, right here. I'm calling it.
Do you actually have time? Right.
Well,
Now I'm curious. I'm going to time myself next time.
Okay, you're
that
on.
Was too much information too.
Send us in your times at feedback@scienceontop.com, and we will not open them.
I'm still kind of getting over the African elephant, though. I mean, it's got basically 160 litres of capacity, and it can purge that in 22 seconds. That's pretty impressive.
When you gotta go, you gotta go.
Decent urethra.
As Daniel said, I mean, do they wait until they're full?
Why don't they slosh when they walk? It's amazing.
Maybe they
probably do.
Maybe they do. I think we've got some more research questions. That's the thing about great research. It always gives you more questions.
But I also think that's one hell of a defense mechanism. If some predator's coming up to attack you and you can just go bang, 160 litres in 22 seconds, you flood the area, wash the enemy away.
Wash the enemy away.
He's going to blow.
See, science. It makes us laugh, and, well, we've thought a bit about it.
Yeah, not much. It hasn't gone that deep, really. Let's face it.
Well, I do think it's interesting that obviously bladder size increases, but so does the urethra increase to allow evacuation at
And also,
roughly
I'm going to
the
guess
same
the
speed.
muscles that enable urination. You know, the relative force and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I don't know how much muscular force is necessary. It's mostly gravity, I would imagine. Particularly, these are all quadrupeds that we're looking at. We don't know if anything was standing up and letting loose.
Is it gravity? I don't know enough about the physiology of urination.
Send in your thoughts, feedback at Science on Top.
See, I always thought like it was. I know it's generally an involuntary action. But once you start, you can't stop. But or you shouldn't stop because it bloody hurts. But I always thought it had a fair bit to do with muscle as well. But maybe I'm wrong.
I'm sure there's some degree of.
Please, yeah.
Like
So
your
please,
pelvic floor and everything.
Yeah.
yeah. Please send us in the information because we're interested in this.
The Literature Prize, and gee, it's a good thing we've got a linguist on the show today.
Hello.
The Literature Prize was awarded to linguists from the Netherlands, the USA, Belgium, and Australia for discovering that the word huh, or its equivalent, seems to exist in every human language, and for not being quite sure why. So let's bypass one avenue of contention, Daniel, which is whether or not huh is a word.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about seeing if there's a common word in every human language? I mean, they did test quite a few, or they looked at quite a number of languages.
They did a number of languages, not a whole ton. There are about 7,000 human languages in the world today, and they looked at 31 of them. Okay, so you're thinking that's kind of small. But they did pick from lots of different language families. They picked Dutch, Lao, Morimpata, which is an Australian language. And they found that in every language there was something like huh as a way of saying, I didn't get what you meant, go back.
How do you just... I cannot get my mind around the process of going, so do you have a word that means this? Do you have a word that means that? Do you have a word for this?
It's usually a lot simpler. It's usually just a case of learning the language and then listening to speakers talk. It comes up a lot. I think they found that people try to repair conversations, try to fix what's wrong every 90 seconds on average. So every once in a while...
Is that just because you finished having a pee and then you come back and ask for more?
Why, yes, it is.
So you mean like these little prompts that the other person in the conversation will give you to continue or to, get back on track? Is that what you mean by repair the conversation?
Well, that's right. I mean, we're talking right now, and so we're doing a number of things. We're talking about something, and we have this idea in our heads of what the other person is thinking. So we're always developing these mental models. Like, I know what I know, but I have to make guesses about what you know. But sometimes our guesses come unsynchronized. And so we have to sort of take a moment. And it always seems to happen as soon as we realize that there's something wrong. We take a moment and we get back on track. And then I now have a better idea of what's in your brain as well as what's on my brain. So communication can continue. It's very amazing, actually, that we can do this at all. We're not only putting ideas into each other's brains, but we're also getting ideas about what's in everybody else's head. This is interesting. I was watching this. I happened to be in a conversation, not really a conversation, with a bunch of speakers of Mandarin, a whole class full of Mandarin speakers, and they were listening to someone else also speaking Mandarin. And this person was making these, sounds, which I didn't understand. That's not one of my languages. And it was kind of amazing to watch that everybody in that room was having the same sort of mental reactions, laughing at the same times, or keeping their interest or losing interest, all at the same time. And it just kind of reminded me just how amazing it is that we as humans can do this, that we can communicate our intentions and make guesses about other people's intentions. It's just a weird thing.
Yeah.
So what was it about that circumstance that made you sort of take note of that? Was it the fact that you weren't following the conversation itself because you didn't understand it and you were just watching the people?
I had no idea what was going on. All I could do was watch. And these symbols, which meant nothing to me, meant everything to those people. Wow. What a weird thing.
Yeah, that was deep. All right. So you go, Daniel.
I want to talk for a second about the universality of it. Why linguists like to look for universals or things that are the same in every language? Because there aren't very many. Linguists like to find things that are the same in every language because then you've really found something. You found something that not even the language barrier can erase. And it makes sense that there's something like, because it's a pattern that everyone needs to do in language. Just like you can't communicate if you're both talking at the same time, and it's hard to communicate if there are silences that are too long. This is just one of those traffic directors that everybody needs to do. And I think it makes sense that it kind of goes, it goes up, because when you go
questioning up, sort of tone.
Yeah, the question intonation. When you go up, it's like you're leaving something hanging, and then the next person has to take it down. Right? So it goes up. If it goes up, it must come down.
Yeah. But the really weird, interesting thing I find about it, and you raised this in your podcast when this first broke before the Ig Nobels a year or so ago, I think it was, is that you give the example of pain. And when you hurt yourself, we might say ow or ouch. But to other people, they say or in Japanese, they say, what was it, itakai or something?
Itai. Itakai is, that's fine.
So we don't have any common response to pain, even though pain is a very common, universal human experience. But the transcends what we would normally, I guess, consider to be language because it's kind of a innate, pre-programmed almost response to things. It's not dependent on culture, I think is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and then you have to ask, okay, well, what's going on? Is that because this is like inborn in our brains? Some linguists like to think that. On the other hand, this team doesn't feel like it is innate, inborn to all of us. Instead, it's probably learned because really small children don't ever seem to ask, they learn to do it a little bit later. Mm-hmm. So I just think that it has to do with the way in which communication has to move forward. It's got to be something simple. So is really good, although we can do it more complexly. Like we can say, what did you say? We can use a full sentence. Mm-hmm. But is quick. Everybody seems to understand it. It seems to fill the same function in just about every language we study. So it could be an example of convergent evolution.
Oh. Wow. So the same word evolving in a number of different languages separately and completely individually.
Yeah, we're always making choices about.
So fit for purpose.
Yeah, it's so good at what it does. So we should actually kind of expect it.
Very cool. And just very quickly also, you're not of the camp that is actually a word, are you?
Oh, look, that's maybe not the most interesting thing about it. I'm pretty permissive about what a word is, but it seems to me like it's more of a grunt. If it were a word, it would have to obey the rules of English, for example, and there are some ways that it doesn't. So certainly a grunt, maybe a word, depending on how you want to define it.
The management prize, and this is where I think Penny loses interest a little bit because it's veering away from true science. This went to 3 business school professors for discovering that many business leaders developed in childhood a fondness for risk-taking when they experienced natural disasters such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, and wildfires that, for them, had no dire personal consequences. So essentially facing hardships and turmoil when you're young that doesn't directly affect you, you don't lose any loved ones, but somehow that engenders a risk-taking behaviour in someone who grows up to become a business leader. It seems a tenuous link to me. Do they have concrete evidence? Does anyone know?
I agree. It seems very tenuous. It seems like one of those correlationary things that, what they did was they built a database of all these country-level natural disasters basically covering a 100-year period from 1910 to 2010. So they had earthquakes, tsunamis, there's the whole gamut of things that you don't want to happen.
Wildfires, storms, floods, landslides,
Yeah, the whole lot. And then basically they then mined this data to figure out where. And I'm not sure in this case whether they were looking for specific people or whether they were looking more generally. assume it was specific because that would have been a lot easier to go after. There was 1,711.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, CEOs. Yeah. So, and as I say, I don't know whether that was an outcome of searching or whether they were specifically looking for those 1,711 CEOs. And of those, they found that a number of them had been affected by disasters between the ages of 5 and 15, and based on various things that they calculated, yada yada yada, this led to the conclusion or the recognition of a correlation that this group of CEOs who had been affected by these things in that time frame, as long as they weren't personally, they didn't suffer any personal catastrophic outcomes from it, such as losing parents or losing the house or whatever. It appeared to lead to more risk-taking behaviours. To me, oh man, there's so many variables here. There's so many variables. And what about all of the other people that experienced these disasters and didn't necessarily go on to have, a yearning for risk-taking behaviours? Yeah. It just seemed really loose to me.
And also, why does a risk-taking behaviour necessarily mean you're going to be a successful CEO? It could mean you're going to die in a hang gliding accident.
And maybe there was a whole section of the people that would have otherwise been in the study that weren't in the study because they were busy being dead from hang gliding.
What also got me was they're all it's all US born people. There was no international correlation at all. So I don't know.
So they only tested US CEOs?
CEOs who are all US born.
So the implication is that in America, at least, to be a successful CEO, you need to have some sort of risk-taking behaviour. I think there's a lot more to it than that. But what worries me is this like the pox parties? Are we going to see parents of children rushing their children to disaster zones so that they can then get that risk-taking behaviour instilled?
Yeah, that's what worries you about.
Yeah.
I somehow don't see that happening. But then again, people are stupid. Yeah.
I agree this seems a little strange. And if I were a psychologist, I'd probably say, this is the kind of thing that we hear all the time. Everybody's looking for a simple reason to explain why people act the way they do. What the team appears to have done, though, is tried to use this to predict what's going to happen when a CEO who's experienced medium danger versus less danger, are they going to do risky things? And apparently they do seem to do things like make significant changes to corporate policies, have less or increase their cash holdings after disaster, and have less stock volatility. So I don't know. I think it's the prediction where it comes true.
What would have interested me is if they had also applied like a successful scale, how good were these CEOs, and did it correlate back to how horrible this disaster was? I don't know.
Well, they did categorize it according to the where was it, a mild or medium effect of such disasters.
Okay.
Medium exposure CEOs were also 3% more likely to announce a corporate acquisition while at the helm, for example.
Right.
But also then, 3%, we're not talking big numbers here. This isn't a huge effect, I don't think, maybe.
Yeah, I think if we tried it in some other countries or even try to replicate it with different CEOs, I think I wouldn't be surprised to find that the effect disappears.
Yeah. The Economics Prize went to the Bangkok Metropolitan Police for offering to pay policemen extra if the policemen refused to take bribes. Don't take a bribe and we'll give you extra money. There's a flaw in the logic here. I don't know if anyone else has spotted it.
Well, it's basically our bribe's better than your bribe. And then how do you know if they ever take a bribe from someone else? Are they going to go, I'm sorry, I fell off the wagon. I took a bribe today. I'll get back on tomorrow, restart the clock. It just seems like there's a self-reported thing.
Presumably they have mystery shoppers as well, people who might get pulled over and then offer
the bribe.
Yeah.
Also, they're encouraging people who do have bribes that are accepted to report the police officer that accepted the bribe. But then how does that work? Hello, I offered a policeman a bribe.
Actually, look, you'd be surprised. I mean, in certain countries, it's so normal to offer a cop a bribe that it probably wouldn't even be considered it'd be like a slap on the wrist almost. I know from experience in Sri Lanka that that's very much the case. It's, you're caught speeding, officer, what can I do to make this go away? And it's very routine.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they do claim that there was some success from this, saying 2 policemen were awarded 10,000 baht or $310 for refusing a $3 bribe, and this is where it becomes a maths issue, because if you get $310 for refusing a bribe and the person bribing you offers you $500, well, it's in your interest to take the bribe and not report the bribe. It's
$3 might not seem a lot, but it is. I don't think cops in Thailand especially get paid very much for a start.
No. But the point is still, it just means the bribes have to increase rather than being $3.
Yes, but then you have to remember people probably can't afford to pay those high bribes.
That's true.
So
I think this could be one thing that you'd want to do if you're trying to really turn things around and you're trying to overcome an entrenched culture of corruption. But it would take a lot of effort over years. You'd have to really say, this is the new way. Who knows? Maybe it would work. Maybe it would be, like a lot of crime is opportunistic. If you see a bike, you might steal it. Whereas if you don't see a bike, you don't maybe go looking for another bike to steal because you really got to steal a bike. So if the money's out there, they'll take it. But if they're rewarded and the risk of getting caught is severe, then this could drive the right kind of behavior. I would think of this as one tool in an arsenal if they're really serious about turning it around.
Yeah. No, I commend them for making an effort, because I think corruption, particularly in those countries where it's so well entrenched, is a really difficult thing to weed out and to turn that culture around. Yeah. And
it's just part of the DNA of the populace. It's it's sort of,
So how do you change that? I mean, it would be like
this is a very quite a radical experiment.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, because you're offering. I'm guessing that the money they're offering is probably quite comparable to their salaries.
Well, police salaries start at about 6,000 baht or $185 a month, at least in 2013. So a $10,000 baht is more than your month's salary.
Yep.
A reward for refusing a bribe. But I think when you get to this point, you're throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. Mm-hmm. And maybe this will stick, maybe it won't. I don't know. This was, I think, in a year ago, 2014, that they started this. So I haven't heard anything since then, but good luck to them.
Yep.
The Medicine Prize was awarded jointly to 2 groups for experiments to study the biomedical benefits or biomedical consequences of intense kissing and other intimate interpersonal activities. This was particularly a Japanese doctor, Dr. Hajime Kimata, who did a lot of research on various aspects of kissing. One was about allergic reactions. And he found that if you had an allergic reaction to something, like with a hay fever or something, kissing someone intensely for 30 minutes straight can help reduce the effects of that. Now, I think that's just mind over matter and a distraction thing, maybe. Or you're probably not scratching it so much because you're too busy playing tongue hockey. But
that's a pretty intense session. It was with their existing partner as well. It's not like they just paired them up with some random person saying, right, go at it for 30 minutes. It was with it. So, 30 minutes straight. Yeah. And all these people had reported apparently not being regular kissers, or certainly not engaging in kissing very, very much in their day-to-day life.
Yeah, I mean, 30 minutes straight is a long time to kiss somebody.
It's a lot.
It is.
Oh, I don't know. I remember many teenage nights that 30 mints of kissing wasn't much at all. That was just standard.
But I mean, as I said, with your existing partner, sure, first start very early days in a relationship, that's fine. But 30 minutes, I mean, that's a lot of time to invest. But what they did find, though, was that there was actually a fairly clear statistical significant difference between those who had those in the kissing group, those not in the kissing group, in terms of their allergic reactions to, like, some Japanese cedar or something or other from memory, and another hay fever thing. But he actually ratcheted this up. So he got the Ig Nobel for this. So I was actually surprised at how long ago it was. It was back in 2003. But he ratcheted it up and then went, okay, well, kissing, that obviously, had an effect. Let's see what sex has. So the next step was to actually have the subjects, I don't know if they were the same ones or new ones, have sex and see if that had any effect on the on their allergic responses to Japanese cedar pollen and house dust. He didn't get an Ig Nobel for that. That seems like...
Well, yes, he did. The Ig Nobels were for all of his research into kissing and other intimate acts combined. So, yeah, he did.
What I like about this is that he not only noticed, that the superficial parts of allergy seem to have decreased, like swollen skin and all the rest of it, but he actually looked at the levels of the antibodies that cause allergies in the first place. Like what causes your allergy is the production of IgE, immunoglobulin E, and it sort of just goes nuts in your nasal passages and stuff. And he actually noticed that there was a decrease.
Yeah.
In this after intense kissing or sexual activity.
So yeah, there was a physiological effect.
So there you go. That's going to make hospital dramas so much more interesting now. The new emergency room admission.
Because there's not enough sex in hospital dramas already. I mean,
True.
Everyone's going to want Dr. McDreamy or whatever he was called.
And so Dr. Kimata shared the Ig Nobel Prize, as I said, with the team from Slovakia, who determined that you can extract the DNA of a man from a woman's saliva up to an hour after they've kissed. I don't know if they were kissing for 30 minutes like that, because that would be a lot of mixing of DNA.
Yeah, we're talking just like like a short, kiss goodbye kind of thing, or are we talking full on tonsil hockey? I mean, come on.
But I don't know what you can make of that. Okay, so DNA gets swapped, big deal, compared to what else gets swapped with all the other bacteria that you're passing back and forth.
I do wonder what the actual physiological reason for this is. Is it?
No, just that there's mixing of fluids, and I guess some of it sticks around in the mouth, presumably.
No, but I'm talking about the lowering of the allergies.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
We do know that when someone is allergic to pollen, like I am right now, it's because my immune system is freaking out, mistaking the harmless pollen for a deadly invader. Yeah. Maybe smooching someone and getting colonized by them like that is... well, that's what we do, isn't it? I mean, we're colonizing each other.
Yeah.
In fact, I was reading an article this week about how we all have this distinctive microbial cloud.
Yes.
That we take around with us. Yeah. So what if it lowered our immune systems a little bit, or maybe served us training? Hey, you've got a big bunch of stuff coming in that's kind of new. So
the load kind of thing.
Always good to have another excuse for kissing and sex. The Mathematics Prize went to Elizabeth Oberzauker and Karl Grammer for trying to use mathematical techniques to determine whether and how Moulay Ismail, the bloodthirsty, the Sharifian emperor of Morocco, managed during the years from 1697 through 1727 to father 888 children. And basically it was by having sex 1.45 times a day.
And bear in mind that 800-ish number is actually a conservative estimate.
Yeah, didn't they say it could be like 1,400 or something?
1,171 children from 4 wives and 500 concubines. Apparently, okay. That's the estimated the upper level.
I think they've gone for 888 because that's the one that we've got the most concrete, solid records for.
So they basically developed a number of computer simulations just to sort of estimate how many times would this guy have had to have sex every day to have 1,171 children. And that's the higher end estimate that they used in 32 years. And they found that with a fairly small, inverted commas, closing inverted commas, harem, he could do this by having sex once a day.
Yeah, once or twice a day.
Once or twice a day.
1.45.
Yeah. He could have done
Is that with a 100% hit rate, though? Like, is that...
Well, I think the different models took that into account. So... are the women's periods, are their menstrual cycles synchronizing? Are they all ovulating at once, or are they all not doing that? And then there's other science to suggest that women look more attractive when they're more fertile. So maybe he picked etc., etc.
Right.
So they had a few different models.
Yes.
I love the set of thinking that had to go into this.
I think it's cool to just go through all the modelling, and I mean these are records dating back 400 years or whatever, 1672 to 1727, and that you've got records that can show you that this guy had that many children in itself is, I think, remarkable.
Mm.
I think a lot of the records come from notes taken by the French diplomat at the time, Dominique Busneau. And according to his report, in 1704, Moulay was 45, was informed that he had 600 sons because daughters were dispatched at birth.
Yeah.
He wasn't a great guy.
But you do have to wonder how much of this was just propaganda.
Sure.
I mean, how many children did he actually father? I mean, there's probably no doubt that he had a massive harem because, as history suggests, he was kind of an arsehole. But that he actually fathered this many children, I mean, yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the Old Testament. Oh, Methuselah lived for 969 years.
And this person and that person, this person, yeah.
Oh yeah, well my guy was so cool that he lived for 2,000 years.
Yeah, very.
Is it Dinkum? Is this real? Is this for real?
Yeah, as far as we can tell, it's accurate to a degree. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, it's based on notes taken by the French diplomat.
Huh?
Who could have been trying to be,
Yeah, there's all sorts of political reasons why you might want to pander to it or whatever.
You were so virile. My government is so impressed with your ability.
But on the other hand, it could have been look at this savage and the way they treat their people, kind of thing. Who knows?
Or it could have been.
He was pretty vicious to any of his wives or concubines, apparently, who committed adultery against him.
Yeah. And anybody who twice at his wives.
Yeah, any dude just looked at his wife in any kind of way that he felt was inappropriate, well, they're dead.
Yeah.
So, that's
Although
awkward.
he only had 4 wives. Yeah. Only.
Well, it says here...
And 500 so-called concubines imprisoned and in his command.
Yeah, but then they rather optimistically and with a with a great deal of happiness seem to state here... the Sultan did not need a harem of 4 wives and 500 concubines to sire that many offspring, mathematically speaking. The researchers suggest he needed a harem of only 65 to 110 women, which is much more achievable.
Yes. And it sounds so much better than 500 concubines. I mean, 110, 500.
That's a lot of concubines.
So while we don't know 100% for sure how many kids the Moulay had, what we do know is that Genghis Khan had a lot of children. He was no slouch when it came to ravaging and ravishing. And 8% of men living in the Mongolian region now carry Y chromosomes that are almost identical to his, which is... he reportedly sired a genetic tsunami that led to roughly 16 million descendants alive today. 16 million people can trace their heritage back to one dude.
Mm.
So the Biology Prize was awarded to scientists from Chile and the USA for observing that when you attach a weighted stick to the rear end of a chicken, the chicken then walks in a manner similar to that in which dinosaurs are thought to have walked. Interesting because, of course, chickens are dinosaurs. They are avian dinosaurs. But this is really kind of cool. They basically used your drainage suction plumbing stick things and they stuck them onto the rear ends of chickens, which then walked more upright, like we sort of imagine the T-Rex to. You look at a chicken normally walking, it's bent over, kind of horizontally almost. This weighted stick made them walk upright and go grrr.
Well, what was really cool about this was that they also the way they did this was that they didn't just take a chicken and chuck a plunger on its ass and say, start walking.
You said on its ass, didn't you?
I said on. They reared these chicks from birth and increased the size of the plunger correspondingly to how fast it grew.
Oh,
so
wow.
to basically make it a limb that grew with the chicken.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know it was that.
Yeah, so it wasn't just because I imagine if you did this to a fully grown chicken, the chicken would just look at you and go, "What?" and probably just fall over because it'd be so surprised. Whereas if this thing grows up with this attached limb, it just will compensate for it automatically.
Yeah,
as it grows up. So yeah.
So they changed them I think it was every 2 days that they changed this tail thing, and they constructed them out of timber, like a timber dowel and clay. Apparently, this plunger thing. So it wasn't actually it's not actually a plunger,
not an actual plunger.
I just thought it was.
But yeah, I mean, it led to changes in the whole structure of the leg. The bones were oriented differently and different angles and so forth. And there's footage on one of the. Are you going to have you'll have the links in the show notes? I assume
I'm watching it now.
Yeah, so there's footage in there showing. There's one the control subject chicken, just normal chicken walking along, and then another one with the chicken with the plunger on its butt. And yeah, it's got it definitely has that sort of that dinosaur gait happening.
It's terrifying. I never realized how frightening chickens could be.
Chickens are terrifying.
Actually, I'm scared of the control one now.
I think Jurassic Park 5 has just got a lot more realistic now.
Clever girl. This time you'll be the nuggets.
Look, my mother-in-law has chickens, and I can't stand the little buggers. They freak me out.
Yeah, but they're tasty.
Really?
No, they've
got a lot of personality, but man, they're stupid.
They're dumb as rocks. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they do
if
have
it was
a
an
lot of
actual
personality.
T-Rex, though, you wouldn't be saying that to its face.
No, I'd be running.
No, I'd be running it.
So as well as the video of the chickens walking with the plungers, when the scientists who did this accepted their Ig Nobel Award, they were also wearing plungers stuck to their backsides, and they were able to demonstrate quite effectively the 2 different walks that the chickens
You serious?
do. Absolutely.
Wow.
We'll include a link to the award ceremony, of course, as well.
You know what this research reminded me of? It reminded me of that study a while ago where they took ants. Remember this one? And they stuck little stilts on their legs.
Yes, I do remember that.
I don't.
Did we do that on the show, or it might have been a story that didn't make the
Didn't make
the cut? Like, I do remember reading about it.
They put ants on stilts, and then what?
Well, what happened
was...
No, that wasn't it. They watched the ant walk to a destination, and normally ants, it appears that ants are counting their steps because these normal ants would just walk to the destination and stop. But these ants with stilts, their longer legs, they can cover more ground. So they would be walking the same number of steps, but they'd pass the goal and they'd be like, whoa, what happened over there? And then they'd have to walk back. Crazy.
Like talking with an anti-vaxxer. The goalposts keep moving.
What the hell?
Can you imagine though telling the little, the PhD student or something? Okay, now what we want you to do is see these things. These are stilts, and we want you to stick them on
They first tried it with really tiny soup cans, and then they moved on to stilts. Dear. But it makes you laugh, but it also makes you think. I mean, this is an evolutionary thing, and as I said, chickens are dinosaurs, as are most birds today. So, very cool. The Diagnostic Medicine Prize went to researchers from the University of Oxford and Stoke Mandeville Hospital for determining that acute appendicitis can be accurately diagnosed by the amount of pain evident when the patient is driven over speed bumps. Now, obviously, the University of Oxford and Stoke Mandeville Hospital, they don't have access to CT scans or MRI scanners or anything, so they just take them out to the car park. How does this even happen?
Well, I did really look. I was talking about this with my wife just before, and she said that when she thought that she had appendicitis when she was a kid, the doctors asked her to jump up and down, and they said, "Does that hurt?" And when she said no, they said, "Well, you don't have appendicitis." So it's something similar. It's basically the way that it jolts, and I think that certain kind of movement can cause pain in your appendix if it is inflamed, and therefore that's one method of testing whether or not you might have appendicitis.
I mean, this is based on sort of looking at case studies and reports of people who were later diagnosed with appendicitis.
Yes. Well, I think the interesting thing about this, it's actually very hard to diagnose without either cutting you open and having a look, or subjecting you to a whole battery of fairly invasive tests. So they have to have sort of methods from the very start to rule it out very quickly. One of those methods is feeling the area and seeing if there's a hard inflamed lump there. Another one is making you jump up and down. Another way is driving over speed humps. I mean, it's
they basically there were apparently there's long been anecdotal evidence from doctors all around the world that this is something that's actually quite a good indicator. And lots of hospitals have got speed humps, so it's, you can ask them, well, as you arrived, when you went over the speed hump coming to the car park, did that hurt? And apparently it just has a very, very high accuracy as being an indicator. If the patient says, no, it didn't hurt when I went over the speed hump, then, okay, they can look for other things, because that pretty much will always be the case, that it will hurt if they go over the speed hump.
Well, also, unfortunately, another problem with that is that other things can cause, if you're driving over a speed hump, if you've got another pain in your abdominal area, like a ruptured cyst or something like that, that can also hurt when you go over a speed hump. So it's not exactly a hard and fast rule.
It's about ruling out appendicitis, not ruling it in. So they wouldn't say, I went over the speed hump and it hurt. Okay, well, appendicitis is still in play. Now, I went over the speed hump and it didn't hurt. Okay, well, let's start looking for other possibilities.
It's a matter of ruling something out rather than ruling something in.
Yeah.
It's just it's basically something else to add to your checklist. And I think it's kind of cool.
It makes the whole diagnostic procedure quicker if you can ask when the patient first comes in, did you go over any speed bumps? Yes. Did it hurt? No, it didn't hurt much more. Instantly, you've ruled out a whole battery of tests that you would otherwise be doing.
And they can triage you much more effectively.
Yeah.
And as anybody who's ever been to emergency knows, triage is probably the most painful thing ever.
My mind immediately went to like a Green Wing episode. Green Wing episode of, I can imagine them having like a speed hump set up in the main hallway, and they'd put the patient in a wheelchair and just drive them over really, really quick. Did that hurt? No. You're right, bro.
It sounds more like House than Green Wing, to be honest. Finally, the Physiology and Entomology Prize was awarded jointly to two individuals. It went to Justin Schmidt for painstakingly creating the Schmidt-Sting Pain Index, which rates the relative pain people feel when stung by various insects. And perhaps more excitingly, to Michael L. Smith for carefully arranging for honeybees to sting him repeatedly on 25 different locations on his body.
Oh, dear God.
To learn which locations are the least painful, the skull, middle toe tip, and upper arm, and which are the most painful, the nostril, upper lip, and the penis shaft.
Oh,
look, you covered all the bases. I like it that you're thorough.
That's even worse than the guy who drank bloody Helicobacter.
Yeah, that guy got a Nobel Prize. This one just got an Ig Nobel.
Well, that's dedication, isn't it? That is serious dedication. It's good enough that he actually, right? Okay, now subject number one is going to sting me here, but he actually included the shaft of his own penis in his tests, and I wonder how many times he got different bees, because the bees all died for the for the test as well, wouldn't they? Because they die once they sting. So
not necessarily.
Yeah, they don't always.
So when a bee stings like another insect or something, its stinger can penetrate and come out, and it will buzz off fine. So stinging doesn't kill it. What happens is that our skin is fairly thick, and if it gets us in a particularly thick spot and flies off, it leaves the stinger and part of its abdomen behind and flies off and dies. Yeah. So they don't actually die just from stinging.
I'm guessing the bee that stung him on the penis then would have been okay, because it's really soft there. So,
well, we don't know.
Depends.
Oh, dear.
What, you think he was... Oh, never mind.
Let's not make any assumptions. Why is it that just about every Ig Nobel show we do has something to do with penises in it? We had the severed penis one year and the reattachment.
Was it the ducks one?
Yeah.
The one with... I remember that.
I think it might have been Thailand as well.
Yeah, that was
where
Thailand.
Angry, jilted wives were chopping them off, throwing them outside to the ducks who are eating them, and then they're trying to reattach them in hospital. And yeah.
Oh, I still remember that.
Imagine if they did that and then a bee stung it while it was on the ground being chewed by ducks as well.
To the lab.
Yeah. So I think this just shows that if you are in going into an apiary, and you're doing your beekeeping, cover your nostril, your upper lips, and your penis. Probably cover everything else up as well, but those especially.
I'm convinced that Dr. Schmidt actually did the Schmidt Sting Pain Index on himself. Check this out. It goes through 4 levels. Level 1, fire ant and sweat bee. Level 2, honeybees. Level 3, paper wasps. And level 4, bullet ants, tarantula hawk wasp. And then he comments in an interview. He says, level 4, you don't want to know.
Wait. Go back. There is something called a tarantula hawk wasp.
That is the name of something at level 4.
I don't want to know what that is, and I don't want to know.
It's like a terrifying melange of a spider, a bird, and a wasp. Yeah. Oh my gosh!
It's coming to get you.
I find it interesting that his level 1 was fire ants, because aren't fire ants pretty horrible?
They're pretty.
Well, yeah,
painful.
I mean they're called fire ants.
Yeah. Well, from memory, they attack in swarms. So,
well, yeah. So maybe just one is probably not so bad, but a swarm of them biting you would be bad.
Maybe.
Because a level 1 sting is the sharp prick you get from a sweat bee or fire ant. But yes, he did do the tests on himself.
It just sounds like the voice of experience. He says the pain is so immediate and intense that it shuts down all illusions of life as normal. That's a direct quote from Dr. Schmidt. This was a haunted
That's
man.
a bumper sticker right there.
Yep.
Oh, dear.
Oh, man.
He could. There's more.
Go on.
Blinding, fierce, shockingly electric, I believe level 4 is. A running hairdryer has just been dropped into your bubble bath. That's his description. Oh, my gosh.
So there you have it. The Ig Nobel Prizes for 2015. Certainly prizes that made us laugh and in many cases also made us think.
And cringe.
So congratulations and thank you to all of the prize winners for doing the research so that we don't have to. As usual, all the links are on the web at scienceontop.com/201 and you can comment there or you can email us feedback@scienceontop.com or catch us at the usual social networks. We do appreciate your thoughts and your feedback. Daniel Midgley, it was great to have you back on the show.
Look, I've had a great time. Thanks, everyone.
And you can hear more of Daniel's engaging words at rtrfm.com.au/shows/talk the talk. You're not using tiny URL anymore.
No, but we do have our own blog. It's www.talkthetalkpodcast.com. And you can find all of our links there.
Very cool. And a big thank you, of course, to Lucas, Penny, and Shane.
All right.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back again next week, putting science on top of the agenda. Join us then.
As you know, we used to have a problem at this ceremony. Many of these speakers would exceed their allotted amount of time. Here's how we now solve that problem. Please welcome the charming, the delightful, the ever so cute Miss Sweetie Poo. Miss Sweetie Poo is 8 years old. Miss Sweetie Poo, would you demonstrate what you will do when somebody exceeds his or her allotted time?
Please stop. I'm bored. Please stop. I'm bored. Please stop. I'm bored.
Thank you, Miss Sweetie Poo.
Stop.
Now, Miss Sweetie Poo.
I'm
Thank you, Miss Sweetie.
Stop.
Now, Miss Sweetie Poo. Thank you, Miss Sweetie Poo.
Stop.
Thank you, Miss
I'm
Sweetie Poo.
bored.
Thank you, Miss Sweetie Poo.
On average, animals urinate for 21 seconds. We call this the law of urination. How in the world can such big animals urinate for the same duration as such tiny small animals? The answer is gravity. Because of gravity, The taller the pipe, the faster the pee. So the next time you're waiting too long for someone to finish using the bathroom, just simply knock on the door and gently remind them.
Please stop. I'm bored.
According to the law of urination,
Stop.
you should be done in just 21 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget to collect your $10 trillion bill from the Nobel laureates over there.
They already did.
Ah, they already did. Good. You're doctors, true and genuine.
Hello, my name is Michael Smith. My research group, which is basically just me, was interested in how the painfulness of a honeybee sting would vary by body location. So we used one human subject, me, was subjected to stings from honeybees on 25 different body locations with appropriate controls, internal standards, and replicates. Now, you've already mentioned the 3 most and least painful places. I should incidentally thank 2 Cornell police officers for having not passed by at the right moment, because then they would have seen me in a little bit of an awkward situation. But all the different places that are... Oh, hello.
Please stop. I'm bored. Please stop.
Sweetie Poo, I stung myself for you. I did this for you. Thank you.